Thank you, Monica. Welcome, one and all, to the day 4 of the special lecture series organized by Srimati Surajba College of Education. Welcome, one and all. I welcome the guest speaker for today, faculty members and students. Last 3 days, we had wonderful sessions. We had the first day by Srimati Sabia More, Associate Professor, Srimati Surajba College of Education, on NPE 2020, the implementation and questions. The second day, we had one more wonderful speaker, Srimati Rekha Pandey, Principal, Udyachal High School, on the topic of Parivartan, let's pivot the change. The third day, we had one more lecture by Dr. Sunita Magre, Professor and IC in charge of Thane Campus, University of Mumbai, on global citizenship education. We've been learning about varied topics. These topics have actually created a lot of awareness in our students about so many things around. We expect students to go and read more and understand about these topics. Today, we are having one more special dynamic speaker, that is Dr. Noorjahan Safianiyaz, who will speak on our constitution. We know about our constitution, but she will throw more light, and we've not read about our constitution, I think, after school. Or you must have come across it for some time as a chapter in some of your books. But today she will throw light on this. I request our principal to welcome her, and then Dr. Yogita to formally introduce our chief guest. Over to you, Judy, madam.
Thank you, Dr. Sunena Kadle. Good morning, one and all. It's indeed a great privilege to have in our midst Dr. Noorjahan Safiha, and who is a very dynamic person in the field of women empowerment. She's someone who really wants every single woman, especially the Muslim women, to really know the rights and to live, especially the right to live happily, joyfully, is what she longs for, and she really works towards this society. We had the opportunity to meet sometime in the college where she had shared her desire, and we had a seminar on with regard to gender as well as with regard to entrepreneurship. And so this morning, ma'am, to have you in our midst, we are really privileged. And I'm sure, as most of our college girls, our teachers, to-be teachers, are women, they also will know how it is very important to know the rights and duties. Constitution is something which is very important that every teacher should know. It's like teachers should be aware of many things, and this is one of the very important aspect. And this morning, to throw light on the rules and regulations and how it governs the entire nation. To talk about it, where we have Dr. Noor with us. Thank you, ma'am, for accepting our invitation, and we're ready to share your thoughts and expert views on this area. So we welcome you on behalf of our management, our institution, and the students of our faculty. We really welcome you and hope it's going to be a wonderful session. So over to Dr. Sunena Kadle. Dr. Yogita, you could go on.
Yes, thank you very much, Judy ma'am. Good morning, one and all. Dr. Judy Grace Andrews are already introduce our chief guest. She is a family to us, but I would really like to formally welcome her on behalf of Gandhi Shikshan Bhavan and Srimati Surajba College of Education. I'm really sorry for not putting my video on because lot rain is going on here and there's lot of technical glitches. Okay. It is rightly said, one must learn to be simple. Anyone can manage to be complex. This is true in case of Madam. Just to mention her achievements, she is the co-founder of Bharatiya Muslim Mahila Andolan. She has mobilized lakh of Muslim women, enabled their leadership, and created an alternative voice and agency within the community. Notable amongst was the Supreme Court judgment and legislations against triple talaq, training women qazis, setting up women shariat courts are few, setting up centers of livelihood and education, and entry into the Haji Ali Dargah are few more of her works. She has also authored books, the latest amongst which is the Indian Muslim Women's Movement. Students, I would like to tell you one thing. Big people or simple people don't talk. They show it by their actions. And Madam has given such a small introduction about her, but actually what she is doing is working at grassroots level. And ma'am, we are really happy to have you with us. We are sure will be enlightened, basically more than enlightened. Our girls and our students will be motivated and will be learning a lot by your talk and by your vision. So we formally welcome you, Dr. Nurjahan Safianias. Welcome, ma'am. Over to you, Sunaina, ma'am.
Yes. Thank you, Yogita, for the introduction. Pooja, ma'am, to please start your session. Ma'am, you should unmute your mic also.
Okay. Can you hear me now?
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, yes.
Okay. One second, this slide is not working. Okay. Thank you so much, Dr. Sunaina Kadle, Dr. Judy, Dr. Francis, for this introduction. I will start immediately, and we will go on to talking about the Indian Constitution today. I've kept the slides simple so that we start from very basics, the very basics of what the Indian Constitution is. And we will have a set of 5 different topics around the Indian Constitution. So the first set of slides are going to be on the basics of Indian Constitution. Then we will talk about the preamble. Then we will talk about fundamental rights, the various articles of the Constitution, and finally the fundamental duties that all of us need to follow. So this is going to be the manner in which I propose to take the session forward. So thank you so much for this opportunity, and I'm glad and I'm honored to be here. Let's start immediately. Okay. So we're talking about Indian Constitution. Before we go on to start to discuss the Indian Constitution and what are the values and the principles and the fundamental rights, fundamental duties, let's first understand what are the different types of ways and manners in which countries organize themselves politically. Okay, We know that our country is a democratic republic state. Okay, we work in a democratic fashion. There are different ways in which a democracy functions, and then that's how we function. But before we understand what democracy is, let us see how, over a period of time, how different countries have organized themselves politically. Okay, so the first type of government, or the first way in which governments or people organize themselves politically, is a democratic government. Now, this is a government that works through elections, and whoever gets the majority of vote, they become the political powers and they govern the country. That's who we are. Okay, connected to being a democratic form of government is a republic form of government, where people don't directly go and sit into the government and govern themselves. Okay, we are a huge country, and it's not possible for all of us to go out there and start doing political activities. So what we do is we elect our representatives and we permit them to take decisions for us the way we do. We elect our representatives, we elect our member of parliament, we elect our MLAs, we elect corporators. So, and then once we elect them, we expect that they go and sit into the seat of power and do things for us and take decisions for us in a way that benefits the entire country or entire society. So that form of a government is a republic form of government. Another form of government which we don't see too much now is a communist form of a government. Now, this government believes in total power. It believes that all power must rest with the government. If we have to give an example, the erstwhile USSR was a communist government, or even China calls itself a communist government now, but its policies are totally opposed to that. But it is still holds a lot of power to it. It believes that everyone one is equal, and it is the responsibility of the government to treat everyone equally, distribute the resources, the powers equally amongst all people. But it does believe that the government has got the right to run everything. So there, in a communist government, the government will run the railways, the security system, even the businesses are held by the government. So that is the communist form of government. Then we come to the another form of manner in which people govern their countries is called autocracy, where it is one person who takes the decision for the entire country. Okay, if you have to really give an example, then Hitler would be one of the examples where one person decides everything. Okay, the power is concentrated in the hands of one person, and it is the whims and fancies of that person that decides how the country is going to be going forward. So these are the four set of governments that we see in this slide. Then we come to another set of another way in which governments run is it is called oligarchy. In today's time, we don't see much of that happening, but in our republic and democratic governments also, we always see that there is always one small group of people who call themselves the elite. Okay, they may be an elite because they are intelligent, or they believe that they are intelligent. They may be elite because they belong to a certain race, or they believe that they are elites because they have a lot of money. So basically, these governments are run by a set of people. So in autocracy, we saw it is run by one person. Here it is not one person, it is a group of people. Okay, so that is one form of government that we have been by which people govern themselves. Then we come to theocracy. Okay, now here the government which comes to power believes that all the laws are made by God. Okay, and we as human beings are here only to implement the laws of the God. Okay, if we have to give an example, then Pakistan is one state which believes that Islam is the state religion. So there, Islam is the state religion, and all the laws that are made in that country, they believe that it comes directly from the God. Some years back, Nepal was a Hindu country. Okay, it was a theocratic country where it believed that all laws must emanate from Hinduism. Of course, now they have shifted to being a secular country, but that is another example that we can think of. Okay, so theocracy is the government is not important. The laws that this government is making to implement comes from God, and that the country is governed by God directly. That's the understanding of a theocratic state. Then we come to a fascist state. Now, fascist state is some form of an autocracy where the government is completely in control. Not just in control, it exhibits full power, full control, strict laws, strict punishments. And again, if we have to give an example, then Hitler's Germany was a fascist state where the ruler, the Hitler believed that the Aryan race is the superior race, and only they have the right to govern, and only a very superior kind of people have the right to exist. And we all know the Holocaust and what he did to that country. But so that's that kind of a government with total power and total control. Now, if you have to, so these are different ways in which countries have governed themselves. Now, if you have to come to our country, let's look at a little bit of history. I won't go too much into that. All of us know, but just to get a little gist of how we have come so far is we had the first war of independence in 1857, where the East India Company and the freedom fighters then so that was the first war where the country people here didn't want the East India Company to rule us, and that was Tatya Tope, Jhansi Ki Rani, and these are all the people. Mangal Pandey were the people who fought the British East India Company then. And then we know the entire series of different struggles that happened, where you had Tilak, and then you had Gandhiji, and then you had Nehru, and all the freedom fighters who came in, and finally we got our independence from the British rule in 1947. Unfortunately, the country was partitioned, and we had another country coming into being. And finally, in 1950, India declared itself a republic. So today's session is basically what happened between 1947 and 1950, how we emerged and brought ourselves in front of the world as a democratic republic country. So while we celebrate 15th August as our Independence Day, as the day from which on which we got independence from the British rule, it took us 3 years to come up with the constitution of the country. And on 26 January 1950, we declared ourselves as a republic. Okay. Now, coming to our topic, Samvidhan. This is the word we use in Hindi for our constitution. Ain is the Urdu word for the constitution, and in Marathi we call it the Ghatna. Okay, so we are going to be having a look at the constitution. As we said, our country is a democratic republic. We elect our own representatives. We give them the power to go and sit into the places of power to govern us. Okay, so
Requesting everyone to kindly mute the mics. Shishma, kindly mute your mic.
okay, so in a democracy, it is the people's rule. We've learned this in school. It is the democracy of the people, for the people, and by the people. So we rule ourselves. In India, because we are a democratic country, there's nobody else governing us. We govern ourselves, we rule ourselves, we make our own rules, and we send our representatives into the parliament to make rules for all of us. Okay. Now, the constitution, what is the work of the constitution? What does it do? It lays down the manner and principles based on which this country will run. So, if we look at if you have to look at an example, our homes, we run our families, we run our homes, and there are certain rules that are laid down. Of course, in a family, we don't have written rules, but there are certain manners, there are certain principles, there are certain values of each family. We believe in certain things. We believe that there are certain rules by which we govern ourselves within our small families. Similarly, the constitution tells us what is the principle, what are the values, what is the basis on which we are going to run this country. ये देश कैसे चलेगा, इसके values क्या होंगे, इसका तरीका क्या होगा, इसका laws क्या होगा, इसका rules क्या होगा. Everything is given down into this book. Okay, and it took us 3 years to come up with this constitution. So it is a basic book of governance. How are we going to be running ourselves? Okay. Now, there are four basic parts to the constitution. If you open the book and see the book, there are different versions, smaller version, bigger versions available. But largely, the constitution is divided into four parts. Okay. The first part of the constitution, if you open the book and see, the first part talks about the territories and the states. So we have what, around 29 states. What are the different union territories? How are we going to govern ourselves? We are a federal system of governance, right? So we have a central government and we have the state government. How are things going to be? How is this country divided territorially? Okay, and what are the rules and manners of governance as far as the territory of this country is concerned? Now, that is given in the first part of the constitution. The second part talks about citizenship. Okay, so who are the citizens of this country? What are the parameters on which you decide that you remain a citizen of this country? If somebody wants to become a citizen, then what are the principles and laws that they need to follow? Everything is given in the part 2 of the constitution. The third part, and this is the part on which we will be spending a little more time, is the fundamental rights. We are a democratic republic, and because we are a democratic republic, it is ourselves that we rule ourselves, right? And as a result of that, we have certain very basic fundamental rights which are ensured in the constitution. Okay, when I say fundamental rights, it means that these are the rights that I need, these are the liberties that I need to lead a life of dignity, of happiness, of peace. Okay, so what are those rights that I have as a citizen of this country? This is given in part 3 of the constitution. And finally, in the part 4, directive principles of state policy are written down. Now, what do we mean by directive principles of state policy? It means that there are certain goals or certain objectives towards which our country will strive for. It gives you the direction. It tells you this is where we need to go. Directive principles are not justiciable. If these principles are violated, I cannot take the government to the court. Okay, but it is the responsibility of the state to ensure that these principles are towards which we move. For example, if I have to make it clear, having a uniform civil code, a common family law for the entire country, is a principle given in the directive principles of state policy. Do we have a uniform civil code? No, we don't have. But it is expected that the state work towards it. Right now, we have personal laws of different communities that each community is governed by. We don't have a uniform civil code. So the DPSP tells us that the state needs to move in that direction. The DPSP tells that we need that all of us, all in the country, must have good employment opportunities. Not all of us have it, right? But the state must move towards it. So these principles are given in the fourth part of the constitution. Okay. So there are four parts to the constitution: the territory and states in part 1, citizenship in part 2, fundamental rights in part 3, and directive principles of state policy in part 4. In our sessions, we are going to be focusing on fundamental rights. So it is a basic document which tells us our political rights. What is there in that book? It's a huge book. What does it talk about? So it tells us our political framework. How are we going to fight elections? Who are going to be participating in the elections? How will the elections be held? So we have an election commission, right? What are the rules and principles on which we will participate in the political life of the country? It talks about the social rights. We are a diverse country, different religions, different people. How are we going to be living together with each other? Are we constantly going to be in a state of conflict, or we are going to be living in a state of harmony? We have different sects, we have different religions, we have different castes, we have different subcastes. We are a hugely diverse country. What is going to be our social makeup? This document also tells us how we are going to run the country economically. Okay, what is going to be the responsibility of the government? Okay, what is going to be the responsibility of all of us? How are we going to be economically running this country? It tells us the legal framework. Okay, so we have the high courts, we have the magistrate courts, we have the Supreme Court. What is the relationship between these various courts? How do we elect judges? How do we elect the lower judiciary? How will the courts function? Who will decide what? Which court, which cases will go where? So these are the legal system is very clearly laid down in the constitution. And finally, it gives us the value-based structure of the country. In the next slide, we are going to be looking at what are the values of our country. What do we believe in as a country? Okay. So it defines the rights and duties of the three bodies and the relationship between them. So what are these three bodies? We know that we elect our people, right? We elect our corporators, we elect our member of legislative assembly, the MLAs, and we elect the member of parliament. What is going to be the role of these elected people? Where will they sit? What will they do? What is their jurisdiction? What is the kind of law that they will make? So, legislature is one arm of the governance, as we say. These are the people who make laws. So, all our member of parliament, you must have seen it on the TV. They sit in the Lok Sabha, they sit in New Delhi Lok Sabha, and they make laws for the country. The laws that are made in the Lok Sabha are applicable to the entire country. We elect MLAs within our state. So, say for example, in Maharashtra, we elect our MLAs. They sit in the Vidhan Sabha in Mumbai, and they make laws for the entire state of Maharashtra. And then, similarly, within each state, you have corporators, okay, the smaller constituency. These are the people who are elected so that they look after our basic needs, the roads, the civic amenities, and other government schools, the government hospitals, as we call in Mumbai, the BMC. Okay. The second arm of governance is the executive. These are the babus or the officers who are selected, right? Legislators or elected people are people who are elected by us. Okay. Now the officers are not elected; they are selected. They go through various exams. We have heard about MPSC exams, UPSC exams, and various exams that are held, and then they pass these exams and they are selected. Okay. Now, what is their job? Their job is to implement the laws which are made by the legislature. So, while the MLAs and MPs make laws, the executive will implement those laws. Okay. And the final category or the final third arm of governance is the judiciary. Who are the judiciary? These are the judges, the lawyers, and their job is to protect the law. So we have the legislators who make the law, executives who implement the law, and we have the judiciary which will protect this law. So what does the constitution do? It gives out and lays down the rights and duties of each of the three arms of governance. What are the rights and duties of our high court judges or supreme court judges? What are the rights and duties of our ward officers or the chief of police or the chief of municipality? What is the job and responsibility of our MLA? Everything is written down in the constitution, and also the relationship between all three. All the three arms of governance are independent in their own ways, but they are also interdependent. And the whole idea is to have a check and balance on each other. So if something is done wrong by the legislators, we have the executive who can keep a check on them. The judiciary will keep a check on the executive. The executive keeps a check on judiciary. So these three arms of governance, the idea is that they all work together for a common goal, and they keep checking on each other, keep supporting each other so that we are able to run the country efficiently. Okay. And in the last slide, we have this little bit of basic information. This constitution, as we know that we started to work on this constitution immediately as soon as we got independence. The first draft of this constitution was tabled on the 4th of November 1947. Okay, so as early as that, the first draft was presented to the assembly. Over a period of 2 years, it was discussed and debated in the assembly. More than 2,000 changes were made in that draft. And finally, on the 26th of November 1949, it was tabled and approved in the assembly. And that is why 26th of November 1949 is also called the National Law Day. On this day, the draft of our constitution was finally approved by the assembly. Okay. So that time there were 284 members who signed and accepted this constitution. It has more than 80,000 words to it now. I'm sure there are more because things have got added. It took more than 2 years, 11 months, and 18 days to actually make it. And finally, on the 26th of January 1950, it was launched in the entire country formally. And that is why we celebrate 26th January as our Republic Day, because on that day we finally became a democratic republic. Okay, now should we stop here and take questions, or should I go ahead?
I think you continue. We can take the questions later.
Okay, no problem.
Yes, yeah. If you want, you can, in case of how much they could understand. If you want to take a few questions, you can. That's not an issue.
Yeah, no, it depends on the students. If they have certain, they
There
might
are more
forget
things
after the.
to.
Yeah. Okay, you can go on. Then maybe we will ask questions at the end.
Okay, no problem. Okay, so now we in the second part we are going to be talking about the preamble of the Constitution. Okay, now when I say preamble, what do I mean? Okay, so preamble is the first page of the Constitution. It's like an introduction to the Constitution. So as you open the book of the Constitution, there's a page. The first page is called the preamble. Okay, now how does it look like? This is how it reads. Okay, now if I will read this preamble the way it is given, we might not be able to grasp the full meaning of it. So I'm not going to be reading this page, but this is how it looks. This is the first page of the Constitution of our country. Now what does it say? Let's take one at a time. The first few lines are, "We the people of India." Okay, now this is a very, very important line. If we read the preamble in just one go, we might just miss the importance of this first line. It says, "We the people." So this constitution is given to us not by anybody else. It's not coming to us from aliens or from some other country or some other planet. It's we the people, okay, who are giving this constitution to ourselves. So what does it say? We the people have solemnly resolved. Okay, we have made a solemn, a very serious kind of promise to constitute India into these five parameters. Okay, so what do we want, or how do we want this country to be? Now, this was already done in 1950. How is this country going to be appearing to the larger public? Who are we? Okay, so the first is, we are a sovereign republic. What do we mean by sovereign? We are independent. We are we run ourselves. We don't have anybody else in this whole world to tell us how we should be running this country. Okay, so the meaning of sovereignty is that we are a completely autonomous, independent country. Nobody rules us. Nobody tells us how we are going to be running this country. Nobody will tell us our rules and regulations. Nobody will tell us how the Supreme Court will function and what will our corporators or MLAs. We will decide. We are independent. Okay. So the first important part that we need to know is that we are a sovereign country, independent, autonomous. The second part is, we are a socialist country. Now, if we have to understand the term socialism in a very simple way, it means that we have to work towards the most poor and the most marginalized. Hmm? Gandhiji has talked about Antyodaya or Sarvodaya. Okay, the last of the people must be happy and at peace. The last of the people in our country must have food to eat, must have shelter, must have clothing, must have school, must have security. So the focus of this country is not the rich, not the elite, but the poorest of the poor. So we are a socialist country. It is another thing. What is happening in the country is another discussion completely. But this is what the Constitution tells us. So we are an independent, autonomous country. We are a socialist country dedicated to the upliftment of the poor and the marginalized. Thirdly, we are a secular country. What does it mean? It means that the government is not a government which believes in a certain religion. So in the earlier slides, we saw that we are not a theocratic state. Our rules are not made by any god of any religion. In contrast, if we have to see, say, Pakistan is a theocratic state. It believes that all its laws come from from God or from the holy book of the religion. In India, we believe that we are a secular nation. Our laws don't come from any religion. Our laws are made by ourselves, by all of us together. And secularism also means that we, as a state, as a government, we believe that all people who belong to different religions are equal. Okay. So when I say I am a secular person, I believe that all of us are equal, irrespective of what our religious beliefs are. When I say that we are a secular state, the state looks at all people of different religions as equal, no discrimination on the basis of religion. Okay, so secularism means that state or the government will not follow any religion, and at the same time it will treat people of all religions equally. Okay, so that is the meaning of being secular. So we are an independent autonomous country. We are socialist. We believe in the upliftment of the poor. We believe that all religions are equal and no religion is the state religion. And finally, we are a democratic republic. We are a set of people who we will elect our own people and we will govern ourselves. There's nobody else who's there to be blamed for whatever problems that we have. We ourselves have to be blamed, or we ourselves have to take credit because we do things ourselves. We are supposed to be governing ourselves. Okay. So this is the first part of the preamble. We, the people of India, have resolved to make India into a sovereign, socialist, secular, democratic republic. Then we go on to the second part of the preamble. And I'm just breaking up the first slide that we saw on preamble. And what do we have to do? We have to secure to all our citizens. Okay. What do we secure? Justice, nyay, insaf. Okay. What is justice and nyay and insaf? That nobody should be wronged. Nobody should feel that something has been taken away from them. Okay. Now, justice again is not just one aspect: social justice, economic justice, political justice. So, I as a citizen, you as a citizen, all of us have to be treated with justice. We have to be treated justly on all accounts: social, economic, and political. Second important value within the constitution is the value of liberty, freedom. So what do we have? The liberty of thought, liberty of expression, liberty of belief, faith, and worship. We will look at these liberties as we go ahead. So what is the first value? Justice. The second value is liberty. And the third important value is equality. It is the job of the state, it is all of the responsibility of all of us to ensure that all of us are treated equally. Equality of what? Equality of status. All of us are equal in status, and all of us must have equal opportunity to lead a better life. So justice, freedom, equality, and finally fraternity. Fraternity is to ensure the dignity of all individuals, to live amicably, to live harmoniously, and to, if we live harmoniously, then the country will be united. We will be working towards the integrity and unity of the nation. So, what are the four values that we believe in? Justice, freedom, equality, and fraternity. And these values are given right on the first page in the preamble of the Constitution. Okay. And the last part of the preamble says that in our Constituent Assembly on 26th day of November 1949, what do we do? We adopt. So this is the Constitution. This is the book. It is laying down all the values of governance, all the principles and rules and regulations. What do we do on this day? We adopt it. We accept it. Okay. We enact it. We implement it, and we give it to ourselves. So this is a very important line. This constitution is not given to us by anybody else. There were a set of people who made this constitution, but finally it is something which we give it to ourselves. And because we are giving it to ourselves, our responsibility is much, much, much higher. Nobody else is going to protect it. Nobody else is going to be working towards its betterment. It is given to us by ourselves, and hence our responsibility is much more. So this is the preamble of the Constitution. You want Let's go through the first page. Okay, so this is how it looks as we open the book. It tells us who we are. It tells us what we have to secure for ourselves: justice, liberty, equality, fraternity. And finally, this is a book that we give it to ourselves on this particular day. So this is the preamble of the Constitution. Let us go ahead and look at the fundamental rights. We saw in the first part, the part 3 of the Constitution talks about the fundamental rights of all the citizens. What do we mean by right? Let us have a look at it. Okay, what is the meaning of right? When I say I have a certain right, what do I mean? Okay, it means that I have the freedom. The basic meaning of a right is that I have the freedom. Freedom for what? For personal and social advancement. And these are called rights. If I say I have a right and if I don't have the freedom, this right will have no meaning to me. Okay. If I say I have a right to educate myself, but if I don't have the freedom to go out and enroll myself in a school or college, then that right will have no meaning. If I say I have a right to work, and if I'm not allowed to go out of the house to work, or nobody employs me, then that right will have no meaning. So a right is basically a freedom. Freedom for what? For personal growth and for advancement of the society. So what are the fundamental rights that all of us have as a citizen? First is the right to equality. Let us go through all of them at the same time, and then we can go have a look at each one of them separately. The second right is the right to freedom. The third right is the right against exploitation. Right to freedom of religion. We are going to be looking at each one of them separately. That is why I'm just going through this. The fifth right is the cultural and educational right. And the last part is the right to constitutional remedies. We will go through each one of them separately, but these are the 6 fundamental rights that all of us have. And these are ensured in the constitution of the country. Okay. Now let's look at the first right, right to equality. These rights are given in Articles 14 and 18. We will look at the articles a little later, but right now we are looking at the meaning of the word equality, right to equality. Right to equality means equality before law. So if there's any law that is getting implemented, I should not be discriminated against just because I belong to a particular religion, just because I belong to a certain gender, just because I belong to a certain caste or place, race or place of birth. I'm equal before law. Everybody is equal before law. For example, if there's a law against robbery, and if there are 2 robbers in front of the police, then the religion or the gender or the caste of the robber should not matter to the police. If there's a law, it has to be made applicable to everyone, irrespective of their various, irrespective of what religion they belong to or what caste they belong. So I'm equal before law. Right to equality also means equal employment opportunities in the government. Okay, so government, because this is our government, this is a government which we have elected, these are the people whom we have brought into power. So in the government, I have the right to equal opportunity for employment. And the abolition of untouchability is also mentioned in the first part of the right to equality. So when I say that I am equal, I should be treated equally. Now, untouchability is such an important, such a grave issue that it had to be mentioned in the Constitution itself. So when I say I'm equal before law, I should be treated with dignity, and abolition of untouchability is one of the cornerstones of right to equality. The second right is the right to freedom. Okay, this is given in Articles 19 and 22. What freedoms do I have? One, freedom of speech. I have the right to say what I have to say. I have the right to speak what I have to speak. I have the freedom of expression. I have the right to, I have the freedom to say my, no, expression only doesn't mean speaking. It could be different ways in which you express yourself. It could be through arts, through different mediums that you express yourself. So the constitution of this country gives me the freedom to speak what I have to speak, to express, to tell what I have to tell to the whole world. That freedom is ensured in the constitution. The third freedom given to us is the freedom of assembly without arms. So I can make an association, I can get people, like-minded people together, form an NGO, form a union, form any kind of association of meeting, getting people together. And then the only condition is that it has to be a non-violent assembly. So this freedom also I have I have been given. Freedom of association is my freedom to associate myself with any organization, with any group, with any union, with any other body that exists. I have the right to, I have the freedom to link up with them, work with them. I have the freedom to practice any profession. Nobody can tell me you can't do this and you can't do that. You can't work like this, or you cannot get employment in a certain sector, or you cannot work in a certain profession. I have the freedom to practice and profess any kind of profession, any work that I want to do. And lastly, the freedom to reside in any part of the country. I can stay in any part of the country. I am free to set up my own home. I can set up my, I can go in any part of the country and stay. So these are 6 basic freedoms that are ensured to us by the Constitution. Freedom to speak, freedom to express myself, freedom to assemble without arms, freedom of association, freedom to practice any work, any profession that I want to, and finally the freedom to stay in any part of the country. These are mentioned in the Constitution and these are our rights. The third equal right is the right against exploitation. Now, one thing that I need to mention specifically in the freedom part, it is not just my public life that I am talking about. Okay? These freedoms or these rights that are given to me are not just part of my public life. This is how I have the right to live. So whether it's my personal space, whether it's my home, or whether it's my workspace, or whether I'm walking on the road, or whether I am at my workplace, these freedoms are ensured everywhere, not just as part of my public life, but also in my personal life. These rights and these freedoms are ensured. Okay. I have a right to speak against exploitation. Now, 2 very specific things are given in the Constitution. Prohibition of trafficking human beings and forced labor. Now, this is clearly an exploitation where you force people to work. There are instances where people are made to work for long hours, minimum wages are not given. Trafficking, especially of children and women, is rampant, especially now after lockdown and during lockdown. We've come across instances where, because of poverty and lack of income, trafficking in women and children has increased. Now, that is prohibited completely in the Constitution. It is the responsibility of the state to ensure that that human beings are not trafficked, they are not sold, they are not made to work in a way that goes against their basic dignity. Prohibition of child labor, very important. This is a clear case of exploitation. No child should be made to work anywhere. It is also the responsibility of parents and the families to ensure that their children are in the school and not working. Right to religion. Okay? When I say right to religion, what does it mean? It means that the first indication is that we are a secular nation and we are such a diverse nation. We have different religions that the constitution of the country allows me to practice my religion the way it is. Equal respect to all religion. Freedom of conscience, profession, practice, and propagation of religion. So I have the right to talk about my religion, propagate my religion, talk about its practices, practice it myself, uh, discuss my religion with people, show who I am or what I belong to. This freedom is given to me by the Constitution. As we said earlier, state has got no official religion. We are not a theocratic state. And I have the right to practice, really practice my faith, establish and maintain religious institutions, charitable institutions. So we see that a lot of mandirs, lot of dargahs, lot of churches are charitable institutions. They are registered with the government. So as long as I follow the law, I can maintain my religious institutions and I can profess my faith and work around propagating my religion. And finally, cultural and educational rights, protecting the rights and religious, culture, and linguistic rights. Now, in our country, we have two basic minorities, religious minorities and linguistic minorities. Minorities are categorized into two basic categories. And it is the Constitution gives me the right to protect or set up my religious institutions, my cultural institutions, and propagate my language. Okay, so this is the right given between the articles 29 and 30. Facilitate them to preserve their heritage and culture. So if I belong to a certain race or a certain caste or certain religion, there are certain practices, there are certain cultural practices which I need to preserve. Okay, now this right to preserve these practices is ensured by the Constitution. Educational rights to ensure education for everyone without discrimination. So right to education has now become a fundamental right, and every child in this country has the right to educate itself. Every child must be in the school, and it is the responsibility of the state to ensure that educational rights are implemented. And finally, if there is any problem, if any of my rights are violated, what do I do? Where do I go? Whom do I talk against? One thing we need to remember here is, here, because we are a republic, we elect our people, we elect our government. It is the responsibility of the government to ensure my rights, to ensure that each and every right that is given in the Constitution is ensured by the government. And the government itself also cannot infringe on my right. The government's responsibility is to ensure my rights, then it cannot infringe on it. Okay. And if I have any issues, I can, if I'm the aggrieved party, if I have been violated, if any of my rights are violated, I can go to the court, and the court will then issue writs. It will ensure that my fundamental rights are protected. For example, when women were not allowed to go into the Haji Ali Dargah. Okay, now this was a basic right that was violated. I was not allowed to go in a certain place just because I'm a woman. So what did we do? We went to the High Court, and then we went to the Supreme Court, and finally the court gave a judgment saying that you cannot stop anyone from going to a certain place just because she's a woman. So if I have any of my rights are violated, the Constitution gives me the right to go to the courts and fight for it. Okay. Okay, I will want to shift directly to the fundamental duties. I will skip the articles because this time is also running out. So, because the same rights are uh, stated differently in the form of articles, so there won't be anything new there. I will straight away go to the fundamental duties. Okay. So just as we have certain rights, we have also certain duties. Rights and duties are the two sides of the same coin. Okay. When I say I have certain rights, also I have certain duties. And what are these duties? These duties are also mentioned in the Constitution. What is the first duty? My first duty is to abide by the Constitution. If this is the Constitution, remember the first slide, if this is the Constitution which I have given it to myself, if this is the Constitution which I believe in, and this is something which I have approved of, and this is the Constitution for protecting this Constitution, I elect my own people. Okay, so then my first duty will be to abide by it, to follow the values, to believe in it, the respect the ideals and the institutions that have come up, respect the national flag, respect the national anthem, because it is not given to us by somebody else. It is something which we have come up with. So my first duty is to abide by the Constitution. What is my second duty? To cherish and follow the noble ideals which inspired our national struggle for freedom. We know our history, we know what kind of sacrifices that were made by our leaders that time, who a lot of them gave up their lives, a lot of them completely dedicated their entire lives to making this country free. What is our responsibility? What is our duty? That we need to cherish those ideals. We need to cherish the ideals of sacrifice, of love, of harmony, of getting people together, of unity. These are the values that we need to cherish, and it is our duty to do that. What is our third duty? To uphold actually, to uphold and protect the sovereignty, unity, and integrity of country. Remember the word sovereignty we discussed? We are an independent, autonomous country, and we are a united country. We are a country of various kinds of peoples. We are different states. We are different religions, different castes. What is my responsibility? That I need to protect this sovereignty. I need to protect this independence that I have got. Okay, and work towards the unity of the country. What is my fourth fundamental duty? To defend the country, render social national service when called upon to do so. Protecting the country. Protect, maybe all of us cannot protect the borders of the country. It's the job of the army, and we are with them when they do their job. But defending the country is not just defending the borders. It's defending what we have right now in front of us, defending our societies, the housing societies that we live in, defending, protecting the environment. This is our responsibility, and whenever we are called to do so, we must do it. The fifth fundamental duty is to promote harmony and a spirit of brotherhood and sisterhood. Okay, we are staying together. We are people of different languages, different religions, different regions, different castes. How are we going to live? Are we going to be living in a state of conflict and fight all the time? No, our duty is to stay in harmony. Our duty is to stay in love and peace. Okay, and a very important duty is, how do we remove practices which are derogatory to the dignity of women? Now, this is given in the fundamental duty. It is our duty to ensure that every woman in this country is protected. There are no practices and there are no cultural norms that happen which go against the dignity of women. Now, this is our duty. Okay. What is the sixth fundamental duty? To value and preserve the rich heritage and our composite culture. We call ourselves a country which we call the Ganga Jamni Tehzeeb. Okay. We are so different and diverse, and yet we are staying together. And that has resulted in a composite culture, a culture which all of us share. We may have differences, we may have different religions and castes and differences amongst us, but at the end of the day, we are together. We are part of a common culture, and it is our responsibility to preserve that culture, preserve the heritage. Heritage also means our monuments, our things that have been made by our ancestors. How do we preserve that? It's our duty to do that. The seventh fundamental duty is to protect the natural environment. It is such an important work that all of us need to do. Our lakes, our forests, our rivers, wildlife, every living creature on this earth, on this planet, on our land, then it needs to be protected. That is also part of our composite culture. It is also part of our heritage. It is something which we have inherited, and it's our duty to improve it, protect it, and promote it. Our next fundamental duty is to develop a scientific spirit, humanism, and a spirit of inquiry and reform. I think it is a very, very important duty. It's very classic that it's come up in our constitution. That the constitution tells us that it is our duty to have a scientific temperament, to have a spirit of inquiry, to question things, to move ahead, to ask questions, not accept things as they are given to us, but to question it, to develop a rational mind, to be scientific in our approach, and to believe in humanity. Now, that is our duty, and it's given in the Constitution. The ninth duty is to safeguard public property and adjure violence. Very, very something which we don't even have to explain and even understand. It is our primary duty that whether it's our railways or buses or our buildings or our civic amenities, our everything that we have created by our own money, our taxpayers' money that goes into building up these public property, and it is our responsibility to defend and protect it. And finally, what is our 10th duty? It is to strive towards excellence in all spheres of individual and collective activity. This is very similar to the fundamental duty number 8, where we have to move ahead, excel ourselves. So, wherever we are right now, always ask ourselves, how can I become better? How can I move ahead? How can I excel? How can I acquire more talents? How can I make myself better? Not just individually, but collectively. As a nation, how can I move towards excellence? We must also understand that India is not just a nation, we are a civilization. We are not born in 1947. Yes, as a nation, we were born in 1947, but otherwise, we are a civilization. We have thousands of years of civilization behind us. So, our responsibility is not just towards ourselves, not just towards these boundaries that we have, but towards the entire Indian civilization, the culture, the heritage, and the fact that we've come all along after so many thousands of years. We are still together and we still share a composite culture. It's very important, it's very valuable, and it's our duty to protect it. Okay, it's our duty to constantly move ahead, take the nation, take ourselves constantly at higher levels, to become better, to excel, to achieve, to become better all the time, not just individually but collectively. So these are uh, the final slide. We have looked at the beginning of at the slide, how the Constitution was made. We looked at the fundamental rights. We looked at fundamental duties, and we looked at the values of our Constitution: values of equality, justice, freedom, and fraternity. This is what governs us. So all these slides are up on the YouTube channel. You can go there and go through it and see what else you need to learn from it. And that's it from my side. Thank you so much for this opportunity, and we can take questions now.
Thank you, Dr. Noor, for this wonderful session. I think she made it so lucid, so informative, and I'm sure there are questions in our students to ask of you. You can go on, you can ask her. She's someone who's, as she was introduced, someone who is really working at the grassroots level. She's working with the women of the society, especially for the rights and duties that they need to get in, empowering them in a very beautiful way. So come on, students, this is your time.
Thank you so much, Dr. Noorja, for your wonderful presentation. And now I throw this session open to our students. If you have any questions, you can ask her related to the topic. Students?
Auntie, now I am coming up.
Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear.
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah. Anybody who needs to ask?
Or if they want clarity on any aspect of the presentation, something which they have not understood, then we can go back to that slide and go through it again. That can
Ma- Good morning, ma'am. Azamta here.
yes,
Would just like to share that point that in our fundamental duties where we need to protect our environment,
yeah,
I feel this COVID pandemic crisis had made us more aware about this particular duty of ours, which we were like not, maybe we were aware about, but we were not following as of such. But now, as the crises are coming upon us, we are like more into caring for our environment and also getting others to know about it so that we create a sort of awareness.
absolutely. Absolutely. And we also need to understand that uh, whether it's this pandemic or generally the climate change that is happening, we see how uh, uh, the droughts have increased, the floods if you see the international news also, things are becoming bad, and this is the result of consistently anti-environment policies of various governments. How we are destroying our forests, how we are destroying the mangroves, how we are the kind of coal mining that we are doing. We are hundreds of acres of forest land is being destroyed so that we are able to mine it. Now, these are policies which we need to question also as a citizen. So, what are we? The question that we need to ask ourselves is, if this is happening, then what am I doing for addressing that issue? Every year, the city of Mumbai is underwater. Why is our drainage system not working? What is our municipality doing? Why do we have to suffer every time? And there are people who die. It's an unnecessary death. You're walking, the manhole is open, and you just disappear in the manhole. What a way to die! So such an irresponsible way in which our municipality works. But then in a democracy, you cannot just blame them. In a
Yes,
democracy, the buck stops here. It comes to me. I cannot blame anybody else. How many times have we gone and do we know our corporators? I would like to ask the students. Wherever you are staying, do you know who your corporator is?
no, ma'am.
Yeah,
Yes,
do
ma'am.
we? Yes, very good. Do we have we gone and met the corporator?
Yes.
Very good. Do we know the office hours? Do we know the responsibility of our corporator? Have we gone and questioned that fellow?
Ma'am,
And
only when we have some work,
yeah,
maybe we will visit him or her.
yeah.
Yeah,
Have we met our?
in the pandemic there
Yeah.
was a situation, ma'am, where there was this grocery stuff, essential commodity given to the poor basically.
Mm,
So, and in the locality where I stay, so it has a mixture of all the people. It's basically poor people, the middle class, and the average, as well as the upper class. So
mm,
this cooperator from his when I had a call with him, because there were some few families around my houses, I know that they were having difficult time. For a month of time it was fine, but later once this pandemic was going, increasing the period of lockdown, so they were having difficulties,
yeah.
with the grocery stuff. So I had a word with one of his, actually basically he used to never come out of his because he was not meeting anyone in the pandemic time. So he used to only, we used to pass on the messages through his people who used to work for his party. So
Mm,
I just had a word that, like there are so many people over here who haven't got the ration.
mm,
So what is the cooperator from his side doing? Because when the time of votes come, he comes nicely joining his hands and shaking his hand
yeah, yeah.
around the area. But now where is he? So he says. So then he gave me a contact number, and I contacted him, and he tells me that he's giving out from his own pocket, from his own goodwill. So
Mm,
I told him, if you're giving it as a cooperator, you have to give it equally to everybody, just not see the poor, because poor gets from all four sides of the corner, and in this
yeah.
the average and middle class people suffer. So then I had a signature campaign in my area, and
Very
then
good.
around 50 to 60 families came up friendly and signed it, and then I gave it to him, and then that's how these people got some ration
Very good.
during this
Very good.
pandemic.
So this is a very good example of how we carry out our duty as a citizen, whether it's pandemic or whether it's normal times also. What are we doing to ensure that our life and the life of the people around us? It need not be a very big thing. It need not be every issue. But how do we make our elected representatives accountable? That is very important. You don't have to do everything. It's not your job. Okay, but your job is to ensure that whoever is elected, whoever has taken your vote, whoever has, it's a power that you have shared with that person. What are you doing with that power? Your job is to ensure that the lives of the people who have elected you, becomes better. And questioning the elected representatives is our duty. It's our responsibility. Yes, anything else? Any
Ma'am, this is Archana.
Yeah,
Ma'am, I just wanted to ask you regarding, like how you said that we have right to education for women and we should focus on women. So, ma'am, there are parts of India where actually no education to women or education to anyone is not possible. But
yeah.
we can have like small scale industries budding around in those kind of areas. So, ma'am, as a government or in our constitution, do we have a provision like that?
Yeah. See, education, livelihood, these are important provisions that I must have, no? And the government's responsibility is to ensure that each and every part of the country has got schools. So even in villages and even in tribal areas, there are provisions, and there is a possibility of the government providing schools. It is the government cannot run away from it. Not just schools, but educational, not just educational opportunities, but also employment opportunities. It's the responsibility of the state, and everybody must have a source of income. Everybody must be able to have gainful employment so that they are able to work and contribute towards themselves and towards the family. So there is no option कि education है तो employment नहीं होगा, या employment opportunities है तो school का जरूरत नहीं है. ऐसा there is no this or that. It is both, the best of education and the best of employment opportunities. These are ideals, right? I know ground situation is very bad, especially last 6 months in the pandemic. Things are, I mean, people have lost jobs, people have lost employment that they already had. There are people who are jobless, not just the poor. The poor have already they've always suffered, but even the middle class today is floundering. So things are not at the best, but it is then our responsibility and our duty to ensure that the government does its work. आप हम हजार लोगों को काम नहीं दे सकते. We don't have the resources, we don't have the power, but our power is has been shared with a certain set of people. They have the money, they have the administrative setup, they have the now, for example, the kind of work that we are doing in pandemic is the ration shops. Now there's a government GR which says that whether you have a ration card or whether you don't have a ration card, you must get free ration, okay, at the ration shops. Now where I'm working in Bharat Nagar, which is a huge slum community in Bandra East, there are, I think, 14 or 15 ration shops across the community, and uh, some of the shops, they refuse to give ration just because the poor woman doesn't have a ration card on her. There are people who have ration cards, but their incomes are supposedly high. Now in a pandemic, what income are you looking at? ठीक है, अच्छे अच्छों की इनकम खत्म हुई है, वो गरीब औरत की इनकम तुम्हें ज्यादा लगती है, and you refuse to give her ration. So our volunteers then worked towards it. We got in touch with the corporators and the ration offices, and we ensured that at least, and also got people to bring in grains from outside, as a personal support, and we've been doing that. But point is, ये हमारा काम नहीं है. हमारा काम, there's a government GR, there's a ration shop, there's a ration office, and the food grains, the granary is overflowing. So where is the problem? जब अनाज है तो गरीबों तक अनाज पहुंच क्यों नहीं रहा है? So this gap needs to be filled in. Not our job is to tell the elected people that, look, this is the gap. What are you doing? Yes, in a state of emergency, we cannot wait for people to do that because there are people dying without food. So we privately arrange for ration, and a lot of that kind of work has already happened, but that's actually not our work. Our job is to ensure that each and every ration shop in the areas are functioning, that they provide rice, wheat, or whatever that list of things that they need to provide. Now that is what our duty is. हम सब कैसे करेंगे? हमारे पास उतने रिसोर्सेज भी नहीं है, पावर भी नहीं है, एडमिनिस्ट्रेटिव सेटअप नहीं है.
Thank you, ma'am.
Anything else?
Anybody else has any questions to ask?
Or anything?
Ma'am,
Anything
I
else?
wanted to ask a question.
Yeah.
Uh, to provide the opportunities for education to any child between the age of 6 to 14 is also a fundamental duty, right? Which was amended by the 86th Constitutional Amendment Act in 2000.
Hmm.
Is it also a fundamental duty?
Duty to what?
To the right to education of a child between 6 to 14
It
years?
is a fundamental right. It is the fundamental right of every child to be in school. And obviously, if it is my right, whose duty it is to protect it? It is the duty of the government to ensure that every child goes into the school. These fundamental rights, duties that we just talked about, these are the duties of you and me. Are you getting my point? The fundamental rights ka total protection ka kaam is with the government. If the child is not in the school, if dignity of women is affected, if untouchability happens, if I don't have the freedom to speak and express, then it is the responsibility of the government to ensure that my rights are protected. I can go to the court. I can complain against my corporators and my MLAs and MPs. Okay. These fundamental duties are our, तुम्हारी हमारी जिम्मेदारी as a citizen. Are you getting the difference? The enforcement of fundamental rights is the responsibility, duty of the government. And this is our duty. And obviously each person in the government is also a citizen. That means उसकी भी fundamental duty हो गई ये करने के लिए. Okay, but ensuring the implementation of right, of each and every of my right, is the responsibility of the government, of our elected representatives.
Ma'am, may I speak?
Yeah, please.
I'm Dr. Francis Vaidya. I teach this constitution and I think you've done a fantastic job. But I think the students usually get confused between rights and duties. Just elaborate on that so that there will be clarity. What's the difference between a right and a duty?
Okay.
This is what she was saying.
Yeah, I think a right is something which it has to come to me. ये मेरा हक है. No, what is the word that we use for right? It is my हक. ये मुझे चाहिए. ये मेरा है. Okay. So if you look at the word right, other than out of the constitution also, हम बोलते हैं ना ये मेरा हक है कि मैं यहाँ पर बैठूं या मैं वहाँ जाऊं या मैं वो खाऊं या मैं वो पहनूं. So a right is something is the freedom that I have for bettering myself. Okay. A duty is something which I do for others. It's the fundamental difference. So it is my duty to say ensure that my area gets fumigated during monsoons. It is my duty to see to it that it gets done. It is my duty that I don't disrespect the national anthem. Okay. It is my duty to see that any national heritage, any monument is not defaced.
Correct.
Okay. So a duty is something which I have to do, which I have to give, which I have. It's my responsibility. जिम्मेदारी है मेरी. ठीक है. जबकि right ये मुझे मिलने चाहिए. It's a two-way process, ना? Certain things which I must have and certain things which I must give. This is the fundamental difference. And in the constitutional framework, a right is to be protected by the state, by the government. By the government because we have elected them. Right? We have elected them. We have given our power to them. अभी तुम मेरे rights को protect करो और मेरे rights violate होंगे तो मैं जाऊंगी सरकार के पास, मैं जाऊंगी कोर्ट में. But at the same time, I cannot be asking all the time. I cannot be मुझे ये दो, मुझे ये दो. But at the same time, simultaneously, my job is also to give. It's a give and take relationship. So fundamental rights is what you get and duty is what you give. I hope I made that.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you so much. I think students are more clear now.
Okay.
Any more questions or shall we go ahead with our program?
Ma'am, just one question. It's always seen that most of the rights that we have are either misinterpreted or people do not exercise their rights in a proper way. So, ma'am, how can we make them more aware that this is the right way that you use your right to certain things? So, for example, the freedom of expression or the freedom of speech. So most of the time, people rather do not exercise their rights in a proper way. So how can we make the people more aware what is right?
That is something which we will have to start with our own homes, right? Now you all are going to become teachers, so your field is already there for you. So at the moment you start teaching, whether it's your subject or not, we need to bring about these rights, whatever subject we teach. Doesn't You don't have to teach constitution or fundamental rights to talk about fundamental rights, right? So for you the field is prepared. The moment you start working, you need to start talking about it, and you will be addressing to a very important audience, right? Your students are the ones who will be taking this knowledge and doing it. But other than that, as ordinary citizens, as people who are not going to be teachers or social workers or lawyers, as ordinary citizens, one is I need to just read up, no? What stops me today? Every information is there on your fingertips. You type Constitution of India and you get it in your hands. You don't even have to go to a library, and it's there in all languages. So somewhere it is my duty to know what my rights are. है ना? Actually,
Yes, ma'am.
ideally it should be taught in the school. All this has been taught in our schools, but how much do we remember? How much do we know? There are people, unfortunately, who are not able to know the difference between the Independence Day and the Republic Day. वो फर्क भी लोगों को नहीं मालूम है. And I am not talking about poor people or uneducated people. I am talking about school, college, and educated people who, if you ask them why this day and why that day, what is the difference between 15th August and 20th, and they don't know. They don't know the meaning of the word republic. Republic Day क्या होता है? हाँ, we have to hoist the flag and we have to sing the national anthem, and that's it. So it is also my duty to find out, right? And more than that, it is my in my personal space. How do we ensure these rights? And these are basic rights. ठीक है, इसके लिए बहुत education की भी जरूरत नहीं है. If I'm a woman and my husband hits me, I don't need to know the constitution of the country, na, to know that this is not to be done. So how do we become conscious of my rights? It's a very internal journey also. If somebody tells me no, the child your child cannot because you have a girl child, the girl child cannot go into an English medium school. Let her go to a Hindi medium or a Marathi medium or Urdu medium school. Now my first reaction to that should be why? It should come very naturally, because it is injustice and it is being treated unequally, and for that I don't have to be even educated. Okay, it is very innate and inborn in all of us. All these freedoms are innate, they're inborn, they are called human rights because we are born with all of them. But we just need to become aware, and once we become aware, to speak about it. If we don't speak about it, कोई भी platter के ऊपर अपने rights अपने को लाके नहीं देगा. Look, this is your right, go out and educate yourself, go work. Nobody will do that. You will have to ask for it, fight for it. So it's not easy. That's what I'm saying.
Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you so much. Wonderful interaction today.
Can I
Yeah,
ask
you
you?
want to ask something?
Yes, ma'am.
Bharat?
Yes, ma'am. Ma'am, my question is: people is know about our rights, but basically they don't know our duties. So
Yes.
how to give awareness our duties to them? How important it is? How strictly we have to follow, ma'am?
I think the answer remains the same. First thing is awareness. How much do were we aware of these 10 duties? We were not, probably. Were we aware of these 6 freedoms that we had? We probably did not. Were we aware of the right to equality? Did we read the preamble ever? We probably read it in our school like one ratta, no? Tak 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 bol diya. Uska matlab kya hai? What does it mean? It's also the fault of our education system. How everything becomes a challenge in memory. If you remember certain things, you are a good student, and then you score big marks. And now everything has been reduced to how uh, uh, whether you get a 99 or you get a 99.9. No, that's where we are. But values, principles, are all lost in our education system. So it's a larger overhaul of the system that needs to happen, where these are not mere words. They mean something to me in my personal life also. Fraternity, equality, justice. It is not for somebody else out there. It is for me also. So for us in this class, this is an opportunity. Look into your own lives and see how unjustly you have been treated, or how unjustly you have treated others. It's not always that we are victims. We are also perpetrators. Do we treat our children equally? Do we treat our neighbors with love and affection? Do we believe in community living? Do we treat people of all religions, all castes, all different varieties that we have? Do we believe that all of them are equal? Ask yourself. Every journey has to begin with yourself. These are big words, not for others. This is for me. अंदर समझ में आ जाएगा तो बाहर भी समझ में आ जाएगा. So I would suggest that start with yourself. Ask yourself, what am I doing for the others? What am I doing for my country? What am I doing to ensure my rights? If I am violated, what am I doing? Am I raising my voice? If I am not allowed to study, am I raising my voice? If I am not allowed to work outside, tomorrow you all are going to be becoming teachers. But your mother will say, no, you first get married. Let your husband decide whether you want to work or not. Are you going to raise your voice that time? So rights are not for others, it's for me. Or tomorrow, if you are violated, you are sexually abused on the road, and you go to the police station, and the police station the guy doesn't allow you to enter the police station. Are you going to meekly come back, or are you going to fight it out? So start with yourself. That's the most important lesson, I guess, we need to take from today's class.
Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you so much, Dr. Noorjahan,
Thank
for
you.
your wonderful session and the interaction. I think you have set our students thinking about rights, duties, etc. Now I request our professor, Dr. Francis Vaidya, to propose the formal vote of thanks, after which we will all rise for the national anthem.
Thank you, Dr. Sunaina Kadle. On behalf of Gandhi Shikshan Bhavan, Srimati Surajba College of Education, the management, the IC principal, Dr. Judy Grace Andrews, the staff, and our dear students, we thank you, Dr. Noor Jahan Safia, for giving us such an extremely enlightening talk on Indian Constitution. It created awareness in our students. They knew about it, but this talk of yours went into every minute details. And this is there for their semester 4, and I hope they remember it. I wish you would have touched upon the articles which they have, but it's okay. You can be called back to college to give us a special talk on that. And since they are teachers, they're going to be teachers, it is very important for them to be aware of it, and so that they can disseminate in the schools they will go to next year. Thank you so much, ma'am.
Just one thing, if you still have time, I can go through the articles. I was just looking at the watch and I was wondering if I'm overshooting time. If everybody is okay with it, I can rush through the articles also.
It will be the principal's call, ma'am, Dr. Judy Grace Andrews.
I skipped it because it was taking time. That is why.
Yeah,
No,
I know.
what I feel is instead of rushing, we can call you some other day.
Okay.
Because we have also planned lectures from 11:30.
Exactly.
It is in semester 4 now. They are in semester 3.
Okay.
So we would like to invite you right away for a special talk, ma'am.
Sure. And these videos are available on the on my YouTube, so students can also go through it. and they can also go through it, come up with questions, keep it ready. So in our next class, we can so we come prepared and informed, and then it will be
Yeah.
much more fruitful also.
Yeah, I think that could be the right stand, Dr. Noor.
Okay.
Where surely we hope at least in the next semester we will have the normal, not in the new normal probably, so that we will have a real discussion face to face. Many more questions could be rising from that. And at this moment, it's nice that the tip of the eyes is opened. So I think the children will be able to really see
Yeah.
the depth of it and go into it. And as teachers, this was a wonderful overview that they could really understand it, deeper meaning of it, and they can come out with more questions. We are surely, of course, as already Dr. Yogita said, you are a part of a family, so you will definitely, we will have the privilege of inviting you over to the next semester as well. Okay, thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Dr. Sunaina, Dr. Judy, for giving me this opportunity. I would love to come back and
Yes.
interact more. Thank you
Thank
so
you,
much.
ma'am. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Maybe rise for the national anthem, Monica. I think Dr. Noorja, you can just close the
Okay.
slide so that we can share the national anthem.
Shall I go ahead with ma'am the national anthem?
Yes.